It's a chilling thought. To be a marine biology student, someone who deeply respects ocean life, and yet to ignore the very warning signs the ocean itself provides. That's what happened to Anthony White that summer morning in 2014. He overlooked the massive seal rookery nearby, dismissed the unusual silence of the water, and paddled out, straight into the domain of a great white shark. The summer of 2014 had brought perfect weather to Surf Beach, California. Sunshine filtered through the morning mist, painting golden patterns on the glassy ocean surface. Anthony, just 22, was exactly what you'd expect from a California marine biology student with a passion for surfing. His friends described him as a perfect blend of fearless adventure and a deep respect for the life teeming beneath the waves. He was known for his infectious enthusiasm and his tendency to seek out remote breaks, always researching surf spots and ocean conditions before paddling out. He'd spent weeks planning this solo dawn patrol session, a perfect combination of his two passions, surfing and marine biology. He arrived at Surf Beach just as the sun was rising, spending his first hour checking the conditions and waxing his board at that remote location. But he was restless, telling other early morning surfers that the real waves were beyond the crowded spots, despite the area being right next to a massive seal rookery at Point Conception. On that fateful morning, Anthony set out early, carrying his 6'2" shortboard and minimal safety gear. He signed the beach access log indicating he planned to surf the main break. But somewhere along the way, he spotted what looked like perfect waves breaking further offshore. Despite the prominent warning signs about marine life in the area, Anthony paddled out about 150 yards from shore to position himself in the lineup. The area was beautiful, almost too beautiful to resist, with seals barking in the distance and crystal-clear water revealing the sandy bottom below. While setting up for the perfect wave, Anthony suddenly noticed something that should have alarmed him. The water was unusually quiet, with no other surfers in sight, and the seals had stopped their constant chatter. But he was so focused on catching the wave of the day that he ignored these warning signs. Finally, he positioned himself perfectly in the lineup, sitting on his board, legs dangling in the water. Then, suddenly, a terrifying silence fell over the ocean. Out of nowhere, it appeared, a massive great white shark emerging from the depths, just 20 feet below where Anthony was sitting. He had unwittingly entered the domain of one of nature's most efficient predators. Great whites are living fossils, virtually unchanged for millions of years. Their torpedo-shaped bodies are perfectly designed for explosive attacks. These apex predators can detect blood from up to 500 yards away and sense the electrical impulses of a beating heart from several meters. When hunting, they approach from the depths in explosive bursts of speed, exceeding 35 miles per hour, using the element of surprise to deliver devastating attacks with bite forces reaching up to 4,000 pounds per square inch. Anthony reacted instantly, but there was nowhere to run. The massive predator struck from directly below, covering the distance between them in a split second. He managed to see the shark's massive form just before impact. The attack came with such explosive force that both he and his surfboard were launched into the air. The sound of his screams cut through the morning silence as the shark's jaws clamped down on his torso, shaking violently as razor-sharp teeth sliced through flesh and bone. The great white released Anthony after several seconds, typical behavior for these predators when encountering unfamiliar prey. But the damage was already catastrophic. Blood immediately began clouding the pristine water as Anthony, despite his severe injuries, began paddling frantically toward shore on his damaged board. The shark circled below, following the blood trail but maintaining its distance, waiting to see if this strange prey would weaken enough to approach safely. Anthony managed to cover nearly half the distance to shore, his movements becoming weaker and more erratic as blood loss and shock overwhelmed his system. A jogger on the beach heard his desperate screams and immediately called for help, but the remote location meant rescue was still minutes away. By the time lifeguards arrived, Anthony had disappeared beneath the surface, the ocean swallowing him whole. 2 hours later, Anthony's mangled surfboard washed ashore, bearing the unmistakable crescent-shaped bite marks of a great white shark. The massive gouges told the story of an encounter with one of nature's most efficient predators. Anthony's body was never recovered despite extensive search efforts. The university established a memorial scholarship in his name, and Surf Beach was temporarily closed while marine biologists studied great white activity in the area. The attack led to enhanced warning systems and additional safety briefings for surfers. As the sun set over the California coastline, the memory of Anthony White served as a stark reminder. I've spent years studying the ocean's most fearsome predators, but the bull shark always struck me as particularly chilling. They can thrive in both salt water and fresh water, venturing far up rivers and even into lakes where other sharks can't survive. This means they can appear virtually anywhere. On the morning of September 3, 2015, in Galveston Bay, Texas, the sky was a brilliant blue, a perfect day for fishing. David Walter, a 26-year-old charter fishing entrepreneur, was taking 4 tourists from Dallas out for the fishing trip of their dreams. He was living the American dream, a first-generation immigrant who built his business from nothing. His clients loved him. He was known for his infectious enthusiasm and his knack for finding fish no matter the conditions. Friends would say he was methodical and safety-conscious, always double-checking his equipment. The Dallas tourists were celebrating a bachelor party, and David had promised them action near the Galveston jetties. They spent the first few hours pulling in red snapper and speckled trout. David expertly managed the boat as the cooler filled with their catch, navigating to his favorite spot a mile offshore where the depth dropped to 25 feet. But as they prepared to move to a new location, disaster struck. The boat's engine coughed, sputtered, and died. They were drifting in the strong Gulf current toward the busy shipping channel. David quickly diagnosed the problem: a clogged fuel filter. It should have been a simple fix, but the boat's anchor began dragging in the powerful current. The situation was becoming dangerous. David knew he had to act fast. He stripped down and dove overboard to manually reset the anchor while he fixed the engine. He didn't know he had entered the hunting grounds of a bull shark. The 7-foot bull shark had been patrolling the fishing grounds for hours, drawn by the chum slick from David's successful charter. The shark's incredibly acute senses detected the electrical fields from David's rapidly beating heart and the scent of blood from hundreds of yards away. What happened next was shockingly fast. David never saw the shark coming through the murky water. It struck from behind, its massive jaws clamping down on his leg with crushing force before immediately releasing and circling for another attack. The impact was so violent that David's clients heard his scream through the water. He fought desperately to reach the surface, but the bull shark continued its relentless assault. It struck again and again, each bite tearing away more flesh. The multiple attacks created a feeding frenzy. The murky water became a churning mass of blood and violence. David's clients watched in horror as the water around their boat turned red. They screamed for help and radioed the Coast Guard, but David had already disappeared beneath the surface. The Coast Guard arrived nearly an hour later, finding only David's torn shorts floating in blood-stained water. The bull shark had vanished into the murky depths, leaving behind only traumatic memories. There's a chilling story they tell in every boating safety course along the Texas coast. It's about a charter business that died along with its owner, a man named David, whose body was never recovered after an encounter with the Gulf's bull sharks. The incident led to new safety protocols requiring emergency beacons and backup communication systems. But thousands of miles away, in the crystal-clear waters of Hawaii, another predator was about to demonstrate why it's earned the most terrifying nickname in the ocean. The evening of April 22, 2016, brought perfect conditions to the remote coastline near Hana, Maui. A gentle trade wind rustled through the palm trees as the sun painted the sky in brilliant tropical colors. Christian Smith, a 24-year-old local, couldn't have asked for better conditions for his solo fishing adventure at one of his secret spots along Maui's untouched coastline. Christian embodied the laid-back Hawaiian lifestyle that drew so many to the islands. With his easy smile and encyclopedic knowledge of hidden fishing spots, he had become a local favorite at the surf shop where he worked. Friends described him as fearless and independent, always venturing to remote locations that other anglers avoided, constantly searching for the perfect fishing experience that only the islands could provide. That evening, Christian loaded his truck with heavy tackle designed for the large predatory fish that hunted Hawaiian waters after dark. The location he'd chosen was breathtakingly beautiful but completely isolated, a secluded beach accessible only by a rough dirt road winding through dense tropical vegetation. Christian arrived just as darkness was settling over the ocean. The spot was perfect. A protected cove with deep water close to shore and a coral reef that attracted schools of bait fish during night hours. He set up his gear methodically, rigging the heavy equipment he'd need for the monsters that prowled these waters after sunset. As Christian waded into about 6 feet of crystal-clear water to cast beyond the reef break, everything seemed perfect. The water was so clear he could see the white sand bottom, even in starlight. And he'd already landed 2 nice fish when disaster struck. Moving through the water to reposition for a better cast, Christian's foot slipped on wet volcanic rock. He fell hard against sharp coral formations, opening a deep gash on his leg. Blood immediately began streaming into the pristine water around him. Local Hawaiian fishermen had warned about increased predator activity during night hours, but Christian had fished these waters countless times. What he didn't know was that the remote location had become a hunting ground for one of the ocean's most dangerous predators. As Christian tried to assess his injury in the dim light, he realized the cut was deeper than expected. His splashing and the metallic scent of blood created the perfect storm of stimuli that trigger a predator's hunting instincts. Unknown to Christian, he had attracted the attention of Hawaii's apex predator. Tiger sharks are perfectly adapted for nighttime hunting in both shallow and deep waters, earning the nickname waste basket of the sea because they'll eat virtually anything. Their stomachs have contained license plates, tires, and even other sharks. These massive sharks can grow up to 18 feet long and possess an indiscriminate appetite that makes them particularly deadly during nighttime hours when they move into shallow water to hunt. Tiger sharks can detect blood from several hundred yards away, and their lateral line system senses the slightest vibrations in the water, making escape nearly impossible once they lock onto a target. Christian began wading toward shore, but his movements became increasingly erratic as blood loss affected his coordination. The coral cut was more serious than he'd thought, and the metallic scent drifting through the water was like ringing a dinner bell for every predator in the area. The 10-foot tiger shark had been patrolling the reef edge when Christian's blood trail reached its sensitive nostrils. Unlike more cautious reef sharks, tiger sharks are known for their bold, reckless approach to anything in their territory, especially during nighttime hunting hours when they become most active. Christian never saw death coming through the dark water. The attack was sudden and devastating. The tiger shark struck from the side, its massive jaws clamping down on his injured leg with crushing force. The impact knocked Christian off his feet, sending him tumbling in the deeper water. The predator's attack was relentless and indiscriminate. Tiger sharks are known for their tenacious grip, often holding prey while using their muscular bodies to roll and tear. The shark maintained its grip while striking with its powerful tail, creating a whirlpool of violence. What makes tiger shark attacks particularly horrific is their feeding behavior. Once they taste blood, they enter a feeding frenzy, biting repeatedly until prey stops moving. Christian fought desperately, but the predator's grip was unbreakable, and each movement only intensified the attack. All of this happening in total darkness. I've seen firsthand how quickly the ocean can turn. One moment, a source of joy and sustenance. The next, a taker of life. I remember hearing about Christian, a fisherman in Hawaii. His screams, they say, echoed across an empty beach, swallowed by the vastness of the coastline. No one was there to hear them. A tiger shark had attacked. His truck was found at the end of a dirt road, fishing gear still on the beach, but Christian was gone, vanished without a trace. A massive search, helicopters, hundreds of volunteers. 4 days later, they found his body 8 miles away. The Hawaiian community held a traditional blessing ceremony, and his surf shop colleagues created a memorial fund for ocean safety education. But even as the tiger sharks hunt under darkness off Hawaii, a similar tragedy was brewing off the rugged Northern California coast. It would soon become clear that even experienced watermen, those who've spent years in the Pacific's embrace, are never truly safe from the ocean's most intelligent and adaptable predators. November 8, 2017. It was a crisp autumn day at Fort Ross, Northern California. The morning fog lifted, revealing that dramatic, rocky coastline where the Pacific swells crashed against ancient sea stacks. 29-year-old Ryan Walsh couldn't have asked for better diving weather. Calm seas, good visibility. It promised a profitable day, harvesting abalone, those prized mollusks that fetch premium prices in the finest restaurants. Ryan was a commercial abalone diver, a dangerous profession. His weathered hands and sun-damaged face told the story of 6 years spent in frigid Pacific waters, free diving to depths that would terrify recreational divers. Friends described him as methodical and safety-conscious, but also driven by an obsessive pursuit of the perfect abalone beds hidden in those rocky depths. That morning, Ryan launched his small boat with his dive partner, Marcus, a younger diver who looked up to Ryan as a mentor. They'd worked together for 3 seasons, developing that wordless communication that comes from facing shared danger in one of California's most hazardous occupations. Ryan chose a productive rocky reef in about 25 feet of water. It was a challenging location. Strong currents, kelp forests, and the ever-present danger of entanglement in abandoned fishing nets littering the bottom. As Ryan suited up in his thick, wet suit, he felt that familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. The water temperature was a bone-chilling 55 degrees, but Ryan had built a tolerance over years of expo. His dive bag contained an abalone iron, measuring gauge, and collection bag, the tools of his dangerous trade. The first few dives went perfectly. Ryan descended through the kelp canopy to the rocky bottom, where clusters of red abalone clung like living jewels. His experienced eye identified the legal specimens, and his practiced hands pried them loose with surgical precision. But on his 7th dive, disaster struck. Working to free a particularly large abalone, Ryan's fin became entangled in abandoned fishing nets. The nearly invisible monofilament wrapped around his leg like a spider's web, holding him against the rocky bottom as his air supply ran dangerously low. After a desperate struggle, Ryan managed to cut through enough netting to break free. He made an emergency ascent, lungs burning as he fought through the kelp toward the sunlight. When he finally surfaced, he was exhausted, disoriented, and dangerously far from his boat. What Ryan didn't realize was that his distressed movements had attracted the attention of California's apex predator, great whites. Living fossils, really, that have patrolled these waters for millions of years. Perfectly adapted to hunt in the kelp forests where seals and sea lions congregate, these massive sharks typically reach 12 to 16 feet and can weigh over 3,000 pounds. Their torpedo-shaped bodies are capable of explosive bursts exceeding 35 miles per hour, enough to launch them completely out of the water. Their incredible sensory system allows them to detect electrical fields from several meters away and track blood trails from 500 yards away. During autumn, mature great whites patrol northern California in greater numbers, following the migration patterns of their preferred prey. These sharks are incredibly intelligent, capable of learning and adapting hunting strategies, making them unpredictable and extremely dangerous to humans who venture into their territory. Marcus, watching from 300 yards away, immediately recognized that something was wrong. Ryan floated motionless at the surface, clearly in distress. Marcus started the engine and raced toward his partner, but the distance seemed impossibly far. The 13-foot great white had been patrolling the kelp beds when it detected Ryan's emergency ascent. The shark's acute senses picked up the electrical impulses from his rapidly beating heart, the scent of abalone in his collection bag, and the erratic movements of a creature in distress. All triggers activating its predatory instincts. Ryan never saw the attack coming. The great white struck from below with devastating force, its massive jaws clamping down on his torso with a bite force reaching 4,000 pounds per square inch, slicing through his wetsuit and into vital organs. The shark's initial bite was exploratory, typical great white behavior with unfamiliar prey, but the damage was already catastrophic. The predator released Ryan and circled back, following the blood trail. I'll never forget the story of Ryan. He was an abalone diver, and one day a great white found him. The shark's teeth penetrated deep, causing massive internal bleeding. Despite his partner's desperate efforts, Ryan died from blood loss just 20 minutes after the attack. That tragedy sent shockwaves through the California diving community, leading to new safety regulations. But even as those changes rippled through the cold waters of the Pacific, a similar drama was about to unfold in the warm, crystal-clear waters off Florida. It was August 14th, 2013, a day that promised perfect conditions for the annual South Florida spearfishing tournament at Jupiter Inlet. The morning sun sparkled on the Atlantic, and gentle swells created ideal visibility. Alex Paul, a 33-year-old construction foreman from Miami, couldn't have asked for a better day. He was a passionate free diver, spending weekends honing his skills in the clear waters. That morning, he joined 40 other competitors, eager to hunt cobia, kingfish, and grouper. He and his dive buddy Carlos headed to a reef in 30 feet of water, a spot known for attracting large predatory fish. For 2 hours, Alex had moderate success. But as the morning wore on, he became fixated on finding a trophy fish. Then he spotted it. A massive cobia, easily 50 pounds, cruising the reef edge. He knew he'd found his target. His shot was perfect, striking just behind the gills. But the wounded fish immediately took off for deeper water. In his excitement, Alex became separated from Carlos, finding himself alone. The wounded cobia's struggle created a significant blood trail. Alex surfaced, bleeding from cuts caused by the fish's sharp fins, exhausted from the fight. The combination of fish blood and human blood triggered the predatory instincts of every shark in the vicinity. What Alex didn't realize was that he had attracted one of Florida's most dangerous predators, the bull shark. These powerful hunters, typically reaching 6 to 8 feet, are perfectly adapted to the state's warm coastal waters. They have specialized kidneys that allow them to survive in both salt water and fresh water, and their incredible sensory system allows them to detect vibrations from struggling fish hundreds of yards away. Unlike some other shark species, bull sharks are known for their bold, direct approach to potential food sources, often competing directly with spear fishermen for their catch. A 7-foot bull shark had been patrolling the reef, and the scent of blood reached its nostrils from hundreds of yards away. Its acute senses detected electrical fields generated by both the struggling fish and Alex's rapidly beating heart. Alex saw the shark approaching. He tried releasing his catch, hoping to distract the predator with the wounded cobia. But bull sharks are opportunistic feeders with insatiable appetites, and multiple potential prey items only intensified their aggressive behavior. The water turned crimson so quickly. A bull shark, they later determined, had struck Alex with crushing force. His leg, the jaws clamped down, severing major blood vessels. Multiple strikes caused massive tissue damage. I can only imagine the sheer panic and fight for survival. He punched at the shark's snout, desperately trying to reach his dive knife, but the bull shark continued its relentless assault. Other divers, alerted by the commotion and the spreading blood slick, raced toward him. They found him floating unconscious, his spear gun and the wounded cobia drifting nearby. The bull shark had vanished, leaving only the devastating evidence of its attack. Despite immediate first aid and a Coast Guard helicopter evacuation, Alex died from massive blood loss during the 40-minute flight to the trauma center. The tournament was canceled. The spearfishing community mourned one of their most respected members. But Alex's death, as tragic as it was, led to enhanced safety protocols in tournaments. New requirements mandated closer proximity to dive buddies, and organizers began providing emergency response training. The association established a memorial fund promoting safer diving practices,